Krishna. Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Rama, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare. O Parivião está no ar. Topa o Parivião, Hare Krishna. Haribo. O Maharaj, ele... Alô, Haribo, tá ouvindo?
Hare Krishna. Jai. Haribo. Não estou te ouvindo.
Alô.
Haribo.
Agora, tá me ouvindo?
Estou te ouvindo agora. Então, o Maharaj, ele entrou e continuou falando.
Eu vi. Eu percebi.
Não sei como fazer.
E aí?
Eu que daria essa aula hoje, né?
Não entendi.
Eu que daria essa aula hoje.
É você que daria? Mas você vai dar aula, então?
Deixa eu ver aqui. O anfitrião... Ativar o anfitrião.
Então...
Só pode dar.
Não,
porque...
se era você que ia dar... Se era você
que ia dar...
Vamos dar um pouco, Maharaj.
Eu ouvi que ele estava direto falando, né? Que não estava assim... Não estava assim sendo... ninguém estava assim monitorando ele, né? Ele estava falando direto.
Eu pedi a ele para esperar, mas ele continuou dando aula. Ele não está ouvindo a gente, não. Nós estamos aqui no ar.
Né? Então tá certo. Então eu aguardo, é isso?
Vamos aguardar um pouquinho.
Tá bom, então. Haribo. Era você que ia dar aula hoje? Não estou te ouvindo.
No schedule seria eu. Mas aí o Maharaj podia dar aula hoje. Então aí eu decidi para ele. Mas tem esse problema lá.
Faz o seguinte, então, eu vou sair eu vou sair e aí qualquer coisa, vocês me chamam.
Tá bom. Tá bom.
Vou sair aqui agora.
Obrigado.
Haribo.
Aí, pessoal do Mayapur TV, estão com problema aí? Alguém está em contato com o Maharaj já? A gente vai reiniciar, né? Vamos aguardar um pouquinho. Rama, Rama. Krishna, Krishna. Hare Krishna. Nós estamos aguardando o Maharaj. Ele vai ter que entrar novamente. Não sei se vai fazer isso. Vou tentar. Krishna, Krishna, Rama, Krishna.
Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hari Hari. We ready to go?
Yes.
Okay, Jay. I was talking about how Shudras also have intelligence, giving the example that a carpenter sees a block of, carpenter has a block of wood and he has tools, and a carpenter knows how to apply his intelligence, how to convert a raw block of wood into a piece of furniture or whatever. That intelligence the Brahmana doesn't have. Now, theoretically, the Brahmana can learn that. He may even know how to do it. Srila Prabhupada once said a Brahmana should be able to teach anything, all kinds of things. But by the arrangement of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the Shudra is gifted with the kind of intelligence to do a particular kind of work. It may be a carpenter, it may be a barber, it may be a menial assistant, it may be an artist, a musician, or whatever. Brahmanas are called the intelligent class of men because they have the intelligence to discriminate between matter and spirit. Although there is the class of karma Kandya Brahmanas also, who followers of the Mimamsa, Purva Mimamsa idea that the material world is all there is. You go to heaven if you follow the process given in the Vedas, according to their philosophy. Who goes to heaven and what is the nature of the being that goes to heaven, that they don't consider at all. So it is a very complex social system. Any social system is complex, but maybe more so. It's based on a metaphysical understanding more so than the grossly materialistic outlook, which is predominant at the present time. It was a great ambition of Srila Prabhupada to revive this Varnashram system all over the world for the purpose of solidifying the spiritual teachings that he gave, of establishing a social system which is conducive for Krishna consciousness and conducive for Krishna consciousness to continue operating in society generation after generation. From the objective perspective, Srila Prabhupada's plan to bring in Varnashram all over the world is maybe more ambitious and unlikely than his plan to bring the chanting of Hare Krishna and the following of the four regulated principles all over the world. It may seem more ambitious and more unlikely at the present time, because now that it's fait accompli, that the chanting of Hare Krishna is spread all over the world, in retrospect, it doesn't look so difficult. Although prior to Srila Prabhupada doing so, it didn't appear that anyone in India thought it was highly possible. And it didn't seem that anyone in India was thinking about it. It had been thought about by Bhaktivinoda Thakur as far back as the 19th century, and others also. Not only Bhaktivinoda Thakur, but others, all other educated Vaishnavas in Bengal, knowing of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's prophecy and considering the possibilities of globalization, that the British have spread their influence all over the world, and by the same instruments that they have done so, the instruments of globalization, of mass communications, which hadn't reached to the global level that we have at the present time, that I can sit here in India and speak to Brazil and different places all over the world. But the possibility was opening up that people from Europe could go to another continent and dominate that. That had already started hundreds of years before, with the Europeans going to the Americas. There were already kingdoms, empires, which spread from one continent to another. So in the 19th century, Bengali Vaishnavas, they were already talking about and thinking about that. But by the mid-20th century, there didn't seem to be much thought or hope of it. It seemed that among Srila Prabhupada's contemporaries in the Gauriya Math, who were the only ones who were thinking about spreading Krishna consciousness worldwide, their experience, the experience of Srila Prabhupada's godbrothers in the West, was that spreading Krishna consciousness in the West, too tough a job to do. Too tough. But Srila Prabhupada took it on, but he had a plan, not only to spread Krishna consciousness, but as a necessary corollary to establish Varnashram. Now to say that is controversial, to say that it's a necessary corollary, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu superficially rejected Varnashram as being external to Krishna consciousness. Ramananda Rai, when he spoke with Chaitanya Mahaprabhu asked Ramananda Rai about sadhya sadhana tattva, the goal of life and the means to attain it. And the first proposal that Rai Ramananda gave was Varnashram. Worshipping Krishna, Vishnu, by Varnashram. Varnashramacharabhata purushena parafpuman Vishnu aradhyate panta nanyat tato shakaranam. From the Vishnu Purana, Ramananda Rai quoted that worshipping Vishnu, the Supreme Lord, by performing one's duties in the Varnashram system, there is no other way to satisfy Vishnu than this. That's from the Shastra. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu rejected it as external, ehobhajya. So often followers of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu say, well, we have nothing to do with Varnashram. That is a misunderstanding, as Bhaktivinoda Thakur pointed out, and certainly as our own Srila Prabhupada pointed out, that Varnashram is external to prema bhakti. It's not of the essence of prema bhakti. But it is necessary in human society, which is why Krishna gives that system. And therefore, I won't elaborate on this point now, because I have others. There's much to say about this, because I do feel strongly about it, and I don't agree with this idea that we should just be all sadhus and very mild and agree with everyone. Srila Prabhupada, he was able to spread Krishna consciousness out throughout the world because he did feel very strongly. He didn't just go along with everyone. He didn't go along with the civilization, with so-called civilization, which he, according to Shastric analysis, identified as demoniac. He wasn't just name-calling. He saw that people, due to ignorance, are spoiling their lives, and that we need to change this by introducing Krishna consciousness, and then a way of life which is conducive for Krishna consciousness, which is why Srila Prabhupada, in so many of his purports, discusses various aspects of the Varnashram system, as he does in the purport which we just read today. Why did Srila Prabhupada discuss so many times about aspects of the Varnashram system? Because he wanted to reintroduce it. He was giving knowledge of it. We know that he wanted to reintroduce it because he says so in his books and in his talks and conversations and letters, increasingly so
Maharaj.
toward the end of the time that Srila Prabhupada spent with us
Jai
in
Maharaj.
this world. Srila Prabhupada's last major
Jai
expressed
Maharaj.
wish
Haribol.
was to go to Gita Nagari, a farm community of
Jai Maharaj.
devotees in the United States of America. And Srila Prabhupada said, I will sit on the land, I will sit there and show you how to establish Varnashram. Srila Prabhupada increasingly, as his movement spread widely, Srila Prabhupada, starting from the mid-70s, early, from say 74, 75, he started to talk increasingly that Varnashram should be established. We have to do it now. We may think, well, Varnashram is something we have to do later. But Srila Prabhupada wanted to do it now. In this regard, I'll read from a recent Vyasa Puja offering by one of my godbrothers, in which, he's talking about the Varnashram imperative now. This is by Swami B.V. Bhagavat,
Jai Maharaj.
who was
Haribol.
Srila Prabhupada's
Maharaj.
Bhagavad Das. I'm going to read extracts from one of his recent Vyasa Puja offerings to Srila Prabhupada. He wrote, Bhagavad Prabhu, now Bhagavat Maharaj. In 1974, you, referring to Srila Prabhupada, conducted a series of discussions on Varnashram in Vrindavan during your morning walks. We, as your disciples, were having a lot of discussions at that time about developing Varnashram Dharma. Srila Prabhupada was discussing it a lot, not in the context, well, Maharaj Prithu had Varnashram. The context, we have to do it now. We have to establish it now. Srila Prabhupada, and continuing the reading, to develop your projects in India, including Varnashram in Mayapur, you made devotees from all over the world who are attending the festival remain in India for some time. That was a major point of the Mayapur project. That was well known at the time, and you can look at Back to Godhead magazines from the mid-1970s when they start to discuss Srila Prabhupada's plans for the Mayapur project. A major aspect of the Mayapur project, which, sorry to say, is largely forgotten nowadays, either by just neglect or forgetfulness, or maybe just deliberate amnesia, was that the Mayapur city was supposed to demonstrate Varnashram Dharma. So people from all over the world could see that. Now, so he's saying that Srila Prabhupada, skipping a bit, Bhagavat was in Bombay with Srila Prabhupada, this in 1974, and he used to be in darshans with Srila Prabhupada, and on one such occasion, he describes that Srila Prabhupada spent a long time discussing Varnashram Dharma with me, explaining how Gandhi had the vision to bring self-sufficiency to India, but that Nehru and Patel betrayed him and built factories in the cities. The next year, in 1975, I had many discussions about developing Varnashram Dharma with the leaders in Mayapur, especially since just the year prior, you gave those talks in Vrindavan. Mayapur was farming at the time, growing grain. That was one of the things that Srila Prabhupada, from the beginning of the Mayapur project, he instituted that devotees should grow food on the land that they had. And in one of the first published editions of Chaitanya Charitamrita, you'll see a photo of fields in Mayapur with the Mayapur temple in the background. The whole scene has changed a lot now due to more building having been done. And there's Jayapataka Maharaj out there in the field behind a bull plowing the land, and it shows how we're showing in Mayapur, how we're showing back to the land, simple living, high thinking. Mayapur was farming at that time, growing grain. I remember Jayapataka Swami showing me the harvest once. They were also developing a Goshala, breeding cows, producing milk and making milk products. There was also khadi being made. Oh, khadi is being made in Brazil also. I don't know if you know about that. Someone in Brazil decided to make khadi. I don't think it was khadi, actually. I think I got it wrong there. It was handloom, because I was in Mayapur in the 1970s also, and the handloom was going on, making cloth products by handloom. There was also devotee cloth weavers would spin cotton. I don't know. By the time I got there, it was handloom. They weren't spinning the cotton themselves, and weave dhotis and saris. One thing that struck me from our discussions, Srila Prabhupada, was when you explained how after the liberation of India from colonial rule, Gandhi wanted that all the leaders should go into the villages and establish self-sufficiency. Gandhi wanted that the leaders should make India self-sufficient village by establishing self-sufficiency in growing food, weaving cloth, building homes from forest wood and stones, and in Bengal also from the local clay mud houses, as I've seen in Bengal and lived in for years, houses made from mud. Making furniture from wood, creating crafts for sale and barter, growing herbs for medicine, establishing schools for education and places of worship for spiritual guidance. These were the pillars of self-sufficient development that Gandhi wanted to establish in every village before having India embark on building factories in the cities. Srila Prabhupada, you told me, this is Bhagavat Swami saying, Srila Prabhupada, you told me that night how Gandhi tried to save India by making it self-sufficient, but that Nehru and Patel betrayed Gandhi by making a deal with Mountbatten to obtain India's freedom by building factories and selling cheap goods to England. In return, the parts for the factories in India would be built in England and shipped to India, thus ensuring England's economic growth while securing their ability to obtain cheap goods. The result of doing this was what Gandhi predicted: slums full of factory workers in the cities who left their farms to make slave wages in the factories, and idle village in the villages where the farming stopped. I remember that there were famines in India in the early 70s because there was not enough farming going on to feed people. Now, this Vyasa Puja often gets more pointed from now on. I believe we, and here Bhagavat Swami is referring to all the disciples and subsequent followers of Srila Prabhupada. I believe we have made the same fatal mistake in your mission. We failed to listen to you when you requested us repeatedly to create Varnashram Dharma, to protect us in the future disaster that you said was sure to come to society worldwide. Now this disaster is upon us. Referring to the coronavirus pandemic. Of course, there is
Isso me parece uma gravação, né?
body of people who don't think
Ele
it's
nem ouve
it's a crisis.
tô
Well, one way or
falando.
another, it is a crisis. Whether it's an overblown crisis or not, the world has dramatically changed since the advent of lockdowns and so on. We are dependent on grocery stores and shops to obtain our daily sustenance. Instead of getting these things directly from the land and the cows, no one listens. India did not listen to Gandhi, and we did not listen to you, Srila Prabhupada. Yet we wonder why we are in the mess we are in now with this disaster on us and no proper shelter for our devotees. How many times have I told this story, Srila Prabhupada, that you told me only to hear everyone say, later, we will do it later. First, this or that must be done, and then later we will do Varnashram. Well, now it is later, and we stand before you today, Srila Prabhupada, once more begging for your mercy that we may somehow at this very late date manifest your desire to create Varnashram Dharma self-sufficiency to protect the devotees and for a place of refuge for sincere spiritual seekers who are suffering. So that's a very pointed statement in a Vyasa Puja offering, how Srila Prabhupada had said that Gandhi wanted to establish simple living, self-sufficiently. It was largely there in the 1940s when India got its so-called independence, but the trends toward modernization were already there, and definitely Nehru was fully into it. And the present industrially developed and spiritually ever increasingly dead India is very much a product of Nehru's dream. Nehru, the atheist, and he wanted India to be very much maturely developed like the West. He also wanted socialism. So that is not part of Nehru's dream, the present India. But the point that Bhagavat Maharaj is making here is that just as the followers of Gandhi, they praised Gandhi so much. Gandhi
elogiaram tanto Gandhi.
It's such a big figure. Nowadays, he's gradually being forgotten. Not exactly forgotten, but not held in the same awe, tremendous awe that he was in India. When I first came to India in 1976, it was still common for people to have pictures of Gandhi in their house and to refer to him as an avatar. Nowadays, you don't hear much about him except on the anniversary of his birthday. But the point is, although that the so-called followers of Gandhi, they would praise him like anything, but they didn't follow what he said. They didn't think it was practical. They think that they had a better idea. And Bhagavat Maharaj is pointing out that we're doing the same thing with Srila Prabhupada, that we don't think it's practical to establish Varnashram. We think we have a better idea. And in this way,
Supposed to be translated into Portuguese. But here is Paravama Das from Brasil. it seems that Maharaj did not know this. Most of Brazilian devotees doesn't understand this. Understand English.
Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna Hari Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna Krishna Hari Rama 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 Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna Krishna Hari Rama Rama Hari 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 Krishna Krishna Hari Rama Hari 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 Krishna Hari Krishna 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 Hari 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 Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare Hare, Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hari Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Ram Ram, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Yeah, please.
Hari
Yeah, please
Rama,
join again.
Hare
Then,
Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna.
Yeah. I
Hari
can't
Rama,
see you still.
Hare Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hari Rama, Rama Rama, Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Krishna Krishna Krishna. Hari Rama, Rama Hare 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 Krishna, Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama,
Hare Krishna.
Rama Hare Hare. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hari Rama,
Haribo.
Hari Bol, Hare Krishna. So shall we resume?
Yes, I will be the translator of your class.
Okay.
Trying to. Okay.
Seems there was a bit of a misunderstanding. That I was under the impression that there'd be a simultaneous translation, whereas you want a line for line translation. So there's we will continue now with a line by line translation. Okay.
Okay.
So
okay.
Just to recap, I was speaking on Srila Prabhupada's stated desire to re-establish Varnashram now. Please translate.
Então, ele estava falando sobre afirmações repetidas de Srila Prabhupada de estabelecer agora,
which is tremendously ambitious,
que é tremendamente ambicioso isso,
considering what a difficult proposition it seems to be.
considerando que é uma proposta muito difícil, parece ser.
But I was making the point that just like in this purport that we read today, Srila Prabhupada is discussing some principles of Varnashram Dharma.
Mas assim como nesse significado que lemos hoje, Prabhupada estava explicando assim os princípios de como estabelecer Varnashram.
And even though Srimad Bhagavatam is the topmost Shastra,
embora o Varnashram seja assim o mais elevado sistema,
it does discuss in some length about Varnashram society.
E ele discutiu até extensamente sobre esse sistema Varnashram.
So it's very much part of Srila Prabhupada's program to direct everyone to the spiritual world.
É parte do projeto Srila Prabhupada direcionar todo mundo para o mundo espiritual.
But at the same time, taking cognizance of the fact that we are here in the material world.
Mas ao mesmo tempo tendo consciência que estamos todos aqui no mundo material.
And providing a way of life that is conducive for us to make the transfer from here to there.
Então, então ele estava tentando prover um sistema de vida, um estilo de vida que desse condições para nos transferirmos daqui para lá, para o mundo espiritual.
In one of his early purports to the Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada refers to the totally misguided materialistic civilization.
Então, num significado antigo do Srimad Bhagavatam, Srila Prabhupada estava falando sobre a civilização material completamente desorientada.
That is in the purport to the verse which begins, Kamasya nendriya pritihi. One should not desire sense gratification.
Isso foi no significado do verso Kamasya nendriya priti, que nós não devemos desejar gozo dos sentidos.
Srila Prabhupada points out in that purport how in all spheres of modern life, the contamination of sense gratification has entered.
Então, o professor Prabhupada estava enfatizando o significado que em todas as esferas de vida existe esse desejo para o gozo dos sentidos.
So Srila Prabhupada wanted to introduce a society based on the Vedic principles.
O Prabhupada queria introduzir sociedade baseada nos princípios védicos,
which do not totally prohibit sense gratification.
E não proíbe completamente o gozo dos sentidos.
Because some sense gratification is required for maintaining the body.
Porque algum gozo dos sentidos é necessário para que se mantenha o corpo.
We need to eat, for instance, which requires the interaction of the senses with the sense objects.
Então temos, por exemplo, que comer. Então tem uma interação dos sentidos com os objetos dos sentidos, que é a comida.
Sex is required in society. That's also required for procreation of children.
O sexo também é necessário na sociedade para procriar filhos.
But at the same time, sense gratification, if it's taken as the goal of life, then we are misdirected from the real goal of life.
Mas ao mesmo tempo, se for considerado o gozo do sentido a meta da vida, então estaremos desviados da verdadeira meta da vida.
So reestablishing Varnashram Dharma is the practical social manifestation of Srila Prabhupada's mercy mission within this world.
Então, restabelecer o sistema Varnashram é a maneira de mostrar a misericórdia de Srila Prabhupada para todos nós nesse mundo.
I know in Brazil that devotees have established quite a few farms there.
Então, no Brasil, os devotos já estabeleceram várias fazendas aqui no Brasil.
And from what I understand, the whole climate and ecology of Brazil, of course, it's a vast country, but in general, it's conducive for living on the land.
E tanto quanto eu entendo, toda assim, a geografia do Brasil, claro que o Brasil é um país muito grande, mas o que eu posso ver é que o clima do Brasil ele é favorável para a pessoa cultivar a terra e ter uma vida simples no campo.
Is that correct? There are vast tracts of fertile land and sufficient rainfall, lots of water.
Ele está perguntando se é correto que tem bastante terra e bastante chuva, e eu falei que sim, é correto.
And from what I understand, people also tend to be very pious in comparison with other inhabitants, comparatively speaking, with once you go north of Latin America.
Isso aí, parece que tanto que eu entendo, as pessoas no Brasil são bastante piedosas em comparação com aqueles que vivem no norte da América do Sul.
When Srila Prabhupada went to Mexico, which of course is a long way from Brazil, but it's the beginning, approaching from the north, it's the beginning of what we call Latin America.
Então, quando o Srila Prabhupada foi visitar o México, claro que é bastante distante do Brasil, mas é onde começa o que nós chamamos de América Latina.
So Srila Prabhupada, he said that people are very pious, and he thought they were similar in that respect. It's simple and open and ready to respect religious people, and similar in that way to Indian people.
E Srila Prabhupada falou que essas pessoas de lá eram muito piedosas e, de uma certa forma, respeitam pessoas religiosas que são piedosos e, em alguma forma, similar ao povo da Índia.
Srila Prabhupada said that Brazil also has an intimate connection with Ram Lila.
E Srila Prabhupada também falou que o Brasil tem uma conexão muito íntima com a Rama Lila.
That Ram and Lakshman, they went to Brazil.
Que Rama e Lakshmana vieram ao Brasil.
That story is not there in the Ramayana, but it's in other Vedic literature.
Essa história não está no Ramayana, mas está em outra literatura védica.
That there was a relative of Ravana called Mahiravana.
Que tinha parente de Ravana chamado Mahiravana.
And he lived under the ground.
Ele vivia debaixo da terra.
He had his kingdom there.
Ele tinha o seu reino no subsolo.
And he kidnapped Ram and Lakshman and took them there.
E ele raptou Rama e Lakshmana e levou lá para baixo no subsolo.
So Srila Prabhupada said there was a tunnel from Lanka, Ravana's Lanka.
Prabhupada dizia que tinha túnel que via desde Lanka
to South America, and it was through that tunnel that that Lanka and South America, what we now call South America, were linked.
E que esse túnel vinha até a América do Sul, e é através desse túnel que a Lanka e a América do Sul eram interligados.
And that's the tunnel through which Ram and Lakshman were brought to Mahiravana's kingdom.
E através desse túnel que Rama e Chandra foram até o reino de Mahiravana.
And Lanka was known as Golden Lanka because it was full of so much gold.
E Lanka era chamado de Lanka dourada porque tinha tanto ouro.
And Srila Prabhupada said the gold came from Mahiravana's kingdom, which we now know as South America, and it was brought to Lanka.
E Srila Prabhupada dizia que esse ouro vinha do reino de Mahiravana, que nós hoje chamamos de América do Sul, e era transportado direto para Lanka.
And we know from relatively recent history that the Spanish, when they came to South America, there was so much gold.
E nós sabemos, né, que há um tempo, né, há uns séculos atrás, quando os espanhóis chegaram na América Latina, havia tanto ouro.
You must know this. This must be all famous in
Vocês
Brazil.
devem saber disso. Isso é uma
Among the
coisa,
devotees at least.
pelo menos dentre os devotos, né?
So, good hope for spreading Krishna consciousness everywhere.
Então, uma boa esperança para propagar a consciência de Cristo em toda parte.
It's a different way of life, a different approach to life.
É uma diferente maneira, é uma forma de vida, uma diferente abordagem para a vida.
But from what I can understand, the people of South America, speaking very generally, they haven't really accepted in the full way the totally materialistic way of life that is there in North America and North Europe.
Tanto quanto eu entendo, o povo da América Latina não aceitaram assim, assim totalmente o esquema materialista como na América do Norte e outras partes do mundo.
They still have a very strong religious and spiritual inclination in their culture.
Então, na cultura da América Latina são muito inspirados religiosamente, espiritualmente.
Is that correct?
É isso? Yes, in some sense.
Yeah, of course, I'm speaking in a very general way. I'm not saying everyone in Brazil is a saint by any means.
Ele está falando de uma maneira geral, né? Querendo dizer que todo mundo no Brasil é um santo, mas assim, de modo geral, é um povo religioso, inclinado espiritualmente.
All right, so shall I take some questions then? I was asked to give some time at the end for questions. Is there still time for that?
Então, ele falou que está perguntando se ele tem alguma pergunta. Foi solicitado que alguém pudesse fazer alguma pergunta no final. Então, se alguém tiver alguma pergunta, vamos ver aqui. I'm going to see in the chat if there is any question, okay? Espera um minuto.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama.
In the chat, yeah, wait a minute. Chat, okay, yeah.
Hare Rama, Hare Rama.
I guess, Maharaj, there is no questions because many devotees left because they could not see the class before, and they maybe see later because it is recorded, it is being recorded, and
I see.
So it became a little late here. It's like 9:30 in the morning. I guess the devotees thinks that there will be no class, and then they left.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right then.
But that will be recorded and maybe
Distributed.
Can send you the questions.
All right, we'll see about that then. What's your name, Prabhu?
My name is Paravyom Das.
Paravyom.
Yes. I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1973.
Oh, my obeisances. Dandavat. Jai Haribol. I'm so happy to connect with the God brother. I must admit, I never even heard of you before.
I saw you many times in Mayapur, but so many I did not have the chance to speak with you.
Oh,
there's times there.
How many disciples from Brazil did Srila Prabhupada initiate?
About 150, but now there is only like a dozen devotees that are active, no? Like,
150 initiated by Prabhupada from Brazil.
That, yeah,
really?
But he never came here.
Wow, how did they get initiated? The movement spread and they came to Mayapur or America for initiation, was it?
Most of the devotees that were initiated by Srila Prabhupada, we were recommended by Hridayananda Maharaj.
Oh, I see. And he did the initiation. He did all that for you.
Yeah. He recommended us.
Oh, I see.
Prabhupada gave us the name and sent the Japamala by post office.
So many. Whoa, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's something I didn't know that. There's such a tremendous response. I think
Yeah,
I
yeah.
only, now let me think. I only knew two of them. One was Param Gati Swami.
Yeah. That's
He,
not Parangati Prabhu.
oh, and of course, our Purusha Trai Swami. I know he was in India many years.
Yes.
I know him. And another one who became a sannyasi, but I think he's not active
Dhanvantari
in
Swami.
Krishna.
Dhanvantari. Dhanvantari Swami.
Oh no, he took sannyas from Bhakti Rakshak Sridhar Maharaj. His name was Ambujaksha. I don't know if you remember him.
Yes, he died. He's not
Oh
living.
really? I didn't.
Left
I
his
see.
body.
I used to be friends with him for some time when he was living in Bengal, West Bengal.
Yeah. He was initiated by Sridhar. First, he was Ambujaksha. It was Prabhupada gave this name to him. But after he got another name.
He took sannyas, I heard, from Bhakti
Yeah, he
Rakshak
took
Sridhar.
sannyas, but afterwards he got married.
I see. Yeah, I heard that. He didn't maintain
Bhuvana
that.
But the name Siddhartha Maharaj gave to him was Bhuvana Mohan.
Oh, I see. He gave him another
Yeah,
name. Huh? Surprised.
Yeah.
I actually went with him. This is a long time back. This must be about 1980 or something.
Did you ever came to
I
Brazil?
went with Ambujaksha. No. I only went to Latin America once, but that also wasn't really. Do you know Tijuana in Mexico?
I know.
Yeah, well, that's not really. You don't even need you can just go over. So I went over once. I was in San Diego. I went over the border. I gave a class to the devotees there, and then I came back. That's all.
Why don't you come to Brazil? It's a big country.
Huge field.
Stay
Yeah.
like 1 year preaching here, and also you can know after 1 year you cannot know all the countries. It's a very big country.
Yeah, big country and many centers and lots of devotees. Yeah, I'm tempted, but I have to. It's just like there's a huge feast and you have to consider how much you can eat and how much you can digest. So it's like all over the world, there's so many preaching opportunities, but you have to consider what you can do practically, because I'm already overseeing devotees.
Yeah. Where is your preaching?
Your
preaching field, where you used to preach?
My main preaching field practically all my life since 1977 has been India. And then during the 1980s, I was in other countries close to India also, like Bangladesh and Thailand. But otherwise, it's been India all my life, most of this life.
You know how to speak Hindi and Bengali.
That's right, yeah.
Well,
I'm in South Indian. Yeah. No, I'm attracted because naturally you feel you want to go and preach in so many places, but we have to consider what we can practically do with considering there are so many things to be done and already established responsibilities. I'm also writing books, which takes up a lot of my time. And then there are health issues also. And so there's this, apart from coronavirus, but apart from that, there's like that.
Okay, if you have some opportunity, we are very happy to receive you here.
All right. Thank you so much for your kind invitation. Well, I'm preaching in Brazil for the first time.
Yeah, but unfortunately, it was not very, the communication was not very clear. No? And then unfortunately, the voice could not hear you live. No? And they were just asking, please translate. But it's difficult to translate simultaneously, like you, very fast. I was trying to give some glimpse, some hints.
I'm sorry. I was told that I should speak and it would be simultaneously translated. There seems to have been some
very difficult to make simultaneous translation.
Yeah. No, I could have done line by line from the beginning, but I was told that simultaneous should be there. Anyway, it was a misunderstanding. This
Yeah.
world is full of misunderstandings, especially.
Mr. Kishore said that she will invite you every month to give a class. Then the next, maybe everything is more organized.
Okay, yeah. All right, we could maybe do it line by line like that. Where are you? Which city in Brazil?
Rio de Janeiro.
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's the most famous city.
I translated Chaitanya Charitamrita into Portuguese and Papalilamrita.
Oh, you did the Chaitanya Charitamrita. What nectar. Oh,
yeah.
What nectar.
1.5 years to do that.
You did it in 1.5 years. That's an amazing. That's quick.
Because we said, if you finish everything in 1.5 years, we give you half of the ticket to India.
Only half.
Only half. Have to collect another half.
And leave you stuck in Mayapur.
Well, that time is very expensive. Now it's more easy.
Right.
I have 2 questions.
Oh, okay. We have questions coming up.
Are
you recording there? Hrishikesh, are you recording?
This is being recorded by them.
Oh, I see. Not by us.
We are recording just our part, the translation.
I see. Okay. All right. If there are questions, I can take.
I not see the question here. I cannot see the questions. I don't know where they are. I'm trying to see here the question. I cannot see.
I can make the question. How do you see Varnashram Dharma being implanted practically nowadays?
That's the first question.
Ele perguntou como é que ele vê o Varnashram sendo implantado hoje em dia.
Well, Srila Prabhupada, for this purpose, he first of all wanted to establish farm communities.
Então, para esse propósito, primeiro, Srila Prabhupada queria estabelecer fazendas, comunidades rurais.
And he wanted to establish a new class of brahmanas.
Ele queria estabelecer uma nova classe de brahmanas.
He said if there's a class of brahmanas, then the other classes can also be established.
Ele falou que se houver uma classe de brahmanas, então outras classes também poderão ser estabelecidas.
Here in India, I'm overseeing several projects, Varnashram farm projects.
Aqui na Índia, eu estou supervisionando vários projetos rurais Varnashram,
where devotees are living, growing food, living without electricity.
Os devotos estão vivendo sem eletricidade, estão assim cultivando a terra, cultivando sua própria alimento.
And they're very happy.
Estão muito felizes.
And they have time for full sadhana.
E assim tem tempo para completo sadhana.
Every day, all the devotees, men, women, children, old people, they all gather together for Mangalarti.
Todos os dias, o pai, a mãe, as crianças, todos se juntam e vão para o Mangalarti.
So they have morning program, a midday program, because it's hot. They go to work early in the fields, and then they come at midday for a talk. Then an evening sadhana program also.
Eles têm programa cedinho no Mangalarti, depois tem programa meio-dia, porque é quente, então eles trabalham no campo, e depois tem também programa à noite.
So it's a beginning, and devotees who visit, practically how happy the devotees are.
Então isso é um começo, e os devotos que visitam lá podem perceber o quanto os devotos ali são felizes.
So it's a beginning.
É um bom começo.
And we hope to expand that more and more.
Queremos expandir isso mais e mais.
Srila Prabhupada started off with a few followers, and because there was something genuine there, it spread rapidly throughout the world.
Então, o Srila Prabhupada diz que se existe uma coisa genuína acontecendo, então isso vai se propagar por todo mundo.
There are also some devotees following these principles who are largely inspired by these projects in the Czech Republic in Europe.
Tem alguns devotos seguindo os princípios que estão muito inspirados por esse projeto na República Tcheca.
So we'd like to export this and spread it throughout the world.
Exportar esse sistema por todo mundo, para todo mundo.
You can please, you can come and see and take it back to your own country.
Vocês podem vir até aqui, ver e depois levar a ideia para o seu próprio país.
I strongly feel that especially the leaders of our society should be very serious about this.
Eu sinto fortemente que os líderes da nossa sociedade devem estar muito sérios a respeito disso.
Because there's great potency in following Srila Prabhupada's instructions.
E tem uma grande potência em servir as instruções de Srila Prabhupada.
And a great disaster if we neglect a major or any of his instructions, especially major instructions.
E há grande desastre se nós negligenciarmos as suas instruções, especialmente suas instruções principais.
Now, if you're interested in how to practically establish, I've given many talks on this in English, obviously, which are available on the internet.
Se vocês estiverem realmente interessados em como fazer isso, tem muitas palestras que ele deu em inglês, isso está disponível na internet.
Which are not just based on theorizing, but from our practical experience in establishing these communities.
Isso não está baseado apenas em teoria, mas da nossa experiência prática de estabelecer essas comunidades.
It is experimental.
É uma coisa experimental.
And in that sense, you could say it's risky.
Em algum sentido, podem falar que é arriscado.
But we are praying at the lotus feet of Srila Prabhupada and trying to do what he wants with the faith that he will protect and guide us.
Mas nós estamos orando aos pés de lótus de Srila Prabhupada para que ele nos proteja, nos dê fé, para que nós possamos levar a cabo esse projeto.
There are many difficulties, no doubt.
Não há dúvida de que há muitas dificuldades.
And there always will be.
E sempre haverão.
There's not going to be any point in time when having Varnashram communities or practicing Krishna consciousness is going to be just extremely easy.
Não haverá nenhum momento na história que estabelecer comunidade Varnashram ou praticar a consciência de Krishna será muito fácil.
And bringing in a whole social system which runs contrary to the ideals, if you can call it that, and expectations of modern society, we can certainly expect a lot of opposition.
Estabelecer um tipo de sistema que vai de encontro oposto para os ideais da sociedade moderna, vocês vão encontrar muitas oposições.
But we have to have the faith that because Srila Prabhupada wanted it to be done, it can be done and it should be done.
E nós temos que ter a fé de que Srila Prabhupada queria que isso fosse feito, então isso pode ser feito e deve ser feito.
It requires a lot of preaching to our devotees.
Isso requer muita pregação para os nossos devotos.
But when they actually take the plunge and do it, then they feel it requires a lot of surrender on their part. But if they do that, then naturally they feel very happy.
Mas se eles assim adotarem nesse plano e realmente e botar em prática, eles vão ser muito felizes.
There were two questions. That was one.
Essa era uma pergunta. Você falou que tinha duas perguntas.
Have more one question.
Yes, please.
Só tinha
I
essa
think
pergunta.
Srila Prabhupada left us early. Is it possible that Prabhupada felt drained, tired, and knowing that he had followed his Guru Maharaj's instructions?
Repete em português, Prabhu.
Acho que o Srila Prabhupada nos deixou mais cedo. É possível que Prabhupada tenha se sentido esgotado e sabendo que havia seguido as instruções de seu Guru Maharaj?
Sorry, could you repeat the question? I couldn't follow
Pode
it.
repetir a pergunta em inglês para ele?
I think Srila Prabhupada left us earlier. Is it possible that Prabhupada felt drained, felt tired, and knowing that he had followed his Guru Maharaj's instructions, he has finished already his instruction? It's possible.
Well, yeah, so that's translation. It's possible, but it's conjectural. We don't know.
Isso é possível, mas é uma conjetura, né? É uma especulação, né? No caso, não sabemos.
I mean, there could be so many possibilities.
Há muitas possibilidades.
I don't see... Well, Srila Prabhupada didn't put it in that language himself, from what records we have.
Srila Prabhupada não botou isso assim, não falou sobre isso nas gravações que nós temos.
He said, I've given you the framework, just like a skyscraper building, and it's up to you to fill it in.
Ele falou assim, eu dei para vocês a moldura, assim como um prédio, né, que fica, só tem estrutura, e agora cabe a vocês preencher isso.
So that is his mercy.
Essa foi a misericórdia dele.
That every acharya does something and then leaves more for the next generations to do.
Todos os acharyas fazem, iniciam e deixam o restante para as próximas gerações fazerem.
All right then, and anything else?
Ok, algo mais? Algo mais, Prabhu?
No, Maharaj. Finish. Thank you very much.
Finish.
You. How do you say thank you in
Much.
Portuguese? Grazie, something like that.
I
How
hope
do you
next time you
Muito
can
obrigado.
again,
Muito obrigado.
fully class, more than 1 hour class.
I'm almost daily giving classes, but of course in English. Live I'm giving, but it's in English.
Yes, unfortunately here, most people don't speak English, no?
Right. And maybe it's good they don't speak English because there's so much nonsense being churned out in the world in English language. I mean, there are advantages and disadvantages also. Most of the nonsense ideas in the world are being spewed out in English.
Falou que é bom que a maioria não saiba inglês, porque tem tanta bobagem falada em inglês no mundo, né? Claro que tem suas vantagens e desvantagens, mas tem tanta besteira falada em inglês que é bom que até que não fala inglês.
So there are advantages to not knowing English also.
Também tem vantagens em saber inglês.
But the main thing, wherever you are, whoever you are, whichever language you speak, whatever languages you don't speak, chant Hare Krishna and be happy.
Então, seja em qualquer lugar, quer que você fale inglês ou qualquer língua que você fale, cante Hare Krishna e seja feliz.
Haribol! Vancha kalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya evacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha.
Haribol.
Haribol.
Jai Maharaj. All glory to Prabhupada.
Jai Param Vyom Prabhu. I made a new friend today.
Yes, when I met you now in India, we can talk more.
Okay, Jai. Hare Krishna.